Welcome back to season 10, finally, of the Porch League. My name is birdido.
And I'm Black J32.
And yeah, this is our draft analysis video. Um, there are some differences this time around, including the fact that we're in Gen 8 meta, but also we are on this brand new fancy website.
And honestly, we've been navigating through the website as we've been preparing for this, and I've learned a few things that I didn't know. It's just really cool. I think hopefully, if you're watching this video, I know a lot of you will just listen, but if you're watching, you'll be able to see
Right.
some of the different ways you can sort and what some of the different pages do. So that should be exciting.
Right. Like, for example, something that we might not get into is this matchup. So if I click on matchup, I can go in here and I'll just put my team up against Adam's team. I like to show the base speeds and sort by speed. Click submit. And it just gives you sort of the matchup. And if you scroll down even more, it'll tell you the hazard control, the cleric support, wish passers, um, priority of each team. So each week going into your battle, this could be a cool way to prepare. It's kind of how I used to sort things on my own in my own Google Doc.
Yeah, and I will say, there's something like this is the only page that you can sort by speed. So there's also the team page. So I don't know if you can
Yeah.
navigate to maybe your team page.
Okay.
So this is, has more detailed info, right? Like it has all the base stats, but you can't sort by speed. This is sorted based on tier,
Right.
right? So Clefable and
Alphabetically
Zero,
and by tier.
right. So it's a little bit misleading
Mhm.
to have this information up, even though it's additional information for things like typing. So all the information is there. It's just you kind of have to be looking at the right page based on the information that you want at the time.
It also just depends how you like to view everything. I like to do it by speed. I think speed tiers are really important, but also um, with less Pokemon and with this point system, I feel like the top tiers um, are going to be brought every single week. It wasn't like before you could maybe with 11 Pokemon in the old tier system, you could probably get away with a couple times not bringing your tier ones and like make your opponents get caught off guard. But I can't think of a team like I look at your team. I can't think of a team where you're not going to be bringing um, your top four Pokemon by tier um, each week.
Yeah, which is the crazy thing is it's not just your top one Pokemon, but yeah, as we look at each of these teams, you'll notice, yeah, most teams have like a really solid top three, top four, top five that they're going to be bringing every week, and then some of those lower tiers are only as necessary or
Right.
yeah, as they have utility.
So yeah, as of right now, you can't like hover over speed or click on speed and sort these columns. This is just how it looks. But you can go onto somebody else's page, look at how isolate them, and then also see their certain matchups. Um, I don't know. I think this is really cool. So
Mhm.
yeah, so that's the team. There's the matchup, and then we'll get into rankings. We're doing like previously, we're doing the top three from each division to go on to the finals or to the playoffs, and then the top one of each get the bye. I think that's how it is. But anyway,
Yeah, and
this
hopefully we'll still do like a moon conference bracket.
right,
Right. Yeah.
and so that's the rankings. I'll show you real quick this submit a match. So it
Oh, I'm
starts
curious about
with
this.
this frequently asked questions. It tells you how this is based on standard draft rules. And for the most part, I think we're consistent with this, with like who gets the kill for explosion and things like that. So my first week is against Orlando Magikarp. So it just auto fills that in. And then you want to put the replay here. Um, make sure it's the replay and not just the link to the live thing, because whenever you click submit, the whole thing submits. You're not able to just edit the little things. And then the mods, Ryan and I, we look at it and we either approve or we reject the submission that you all put in. So, um, so yeah, put in the replay, and then this is
And
where you
out of
put the
curiosity,
differentials.
sorry to interrupt, but out
Yeah,
of curiosity, so that replay is, like the same replay that we'd share on Discord. It's not the downloaded version, right?
it's just the link to the um, Showdown website. Because
Okay,
then, because
perfect.
then when you look over at someone's schedule, you can click View Replay, and you click on it, and it just hyperlinks you over to Showdown.
Okay,
So then
perfect.
you
And that's
can
great. Yeah,
go on.
and above, yeah, you can see the rules for what counts as an indirect kill, which you briefly mentioned, but we haven't counted those per se in the past as indirect kills. They've been kind of lumped together. Um,
Yeah, that's a good
but that'll
point.
be just something that is other draft league teams count, and so
Right,
because we're using this website, we'll start counting it too.
right. Um, and I think the only reason we had it before was we brought it up was just because we didn't want to clog up our Google Docs. So
Hmm.
we're not clogging anything here. So yeah, so you put in your differential amount left on your side, amount on your opponent's side. You can either type in the number, um, or you can toggle up and down. Um, so let's say I lost to Ben 0-4. For your team, it separates out just your 10 Pokemon that you can choose from. So let's say I chose Charizard, Clefable, Cottonee, Linoon, Mantine. You do this for your team and your opponent's team.
Oh, you have
Uh,
to do it for your opponent's team as
yeah,
well.
you one person submits both sides of the thing.
Ah,
So then
okay.
when you look at your opponent's team, it's a drop down of all the Pokemon that were drafted. So you do have to just type in. So
Hmm.
Ben has Dottler and Bronzong. So anyway, you would do that. You would make sure all of your Pokemon in correctly, and then you fill out the direct kills and indirect kills. And something that's easy to miss is for each Pokemon, put whether or not they survived or fainted. So
Mm,
since I lost all of my Pokemon, I have to go through and remember to select them all as fainted.
right.
And then
So, and
if he
hopefully,
had four left, then he only has two Pokemon that fainted.
yeah, and it's good then that the mod or like one of the mods has to confirm in
Yeah,
case there's a mistake.
exactly. And
If
that
if
usually
something
just
gets
means that you just have to submit it.
okay, if something's confirmed and it has a mistake in it that's found later, is there a way to go back and correct that?
Yeah, I could go in and reject that one, and then you would just have to start over and put it all in.
Okay, you can reject it even after you've approved it.
Right.
Okay,
Um
cool.
Also, I can submit matches, so could Ryan. So if I click submit a match, then um it would look, it shows the head to heads. Um, but frankly, when there's um, like 6 or 7 games happening every week, um, I'm just not going to do this unless it was like a situation where 3 weeks in we found out there was an error and I could go in and edit it real quick. Um, Early on, we're going to have a lot of mistakes. That's okay. It's bound to happen. It's a new program for us.
Mm. Yeah, great. So I think it's really exciting. I think it'll especially as we continue to play like in 3 or 4 seasons, it's going to start to keep track of stats or being able to go back and watch old replays is going to be
Exactly.
really easy.
Exactly.
Um, so
When I click on stats, there's going to be kill leaders for the season, but then um, down here there's an all-time kill leader list, all-time uh, yeah, K death ratio, all-time deaths per match, um, all-time winningest coach. So this will all start filling out as we do multiple seasons, which will be cool.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting.
Cool.
So,
So let's get into the intro. So we're in a new
yeah,
format. Talk about it.
yeah, it's so different. And maybe it doesn't seem different. I don't know. I hope everyone thinks it's as different as it seems to me. So, just to like list a couple things, we have 10 Pokemon per team instead of 11, which to me meant that I felt like my team was a lot less rounded than I wanted it to be. And so I'm curious if other people think that about their teams. You know, if there's, oh, I wanted that one extra rocker. I have that one speed gap that I wanted to fill, things like that.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, there's also a lot of new Pokemon. We're in a new generation, and so that's a new meta. And um, we kind of guessed on where Pokemon would go, but as we found out in season or all of the seasons before this, when we were in Gen 7, um, some Pokemon weren't properly tiered until way late in the generation. And I say properly tiered because um, some Pokemon just weren't realized, or their potential wasn't realized, not only in our league, but also in other leagues. I felt like Tapu Fini and Tapu Koko only got better and better um, as the generation went on.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so there's the new Pokemon, obviously with the cuts, there's a lot fewer Pokemon too. Um, I think there's the least number of fire types in this generation, but also just thinking about like the sort of the staples from our previous generations. Like it was pretty much in Gen 7 when we were drafting 11 Pokemon, one of those being a Mega, is you had to have a fairy type. And some of the fairy types historically usually can provide some sort of support for your team, whether it's Heal Bell or Wish support, or even after Ultra Sun and Moon came out, a lot of fairies got defog. They could either be offensive plus cleric support or defensive plus some offensive pressure. And yeah, I think a lot of those more versatile fairies are gone. Um, like the megas were Mega Diancie, Mega Altaria, Mega Gardevoir, which were all tier ones for us, and then Mega Audino, which some people would pick to sacrifice um, getting a great Mega so that they could get a Wish Passer, a Bulky Fairy, a Regenerator. And then like the tier ones were the Tapus, Tapu Fini, Coco, and Bulu, and tier twos and threes were the Florges, Klefki, and Comfy. And pretty much every time we drafted, all but maybe two of those were drafted.
Yeah. So the field is a lot less wide open for fairies. And something else that is a little bit crazy to me is how, and maybe these will start to settle in my mind the longer we go, but speed tiers I think are very different now.
Right.
So I just counted, and so this is going to sound like a big number. There's only 26 Pokemon with a base speed of 110 or more.
Wow.
So that includes things like Frostlass, Alolan Dugtrio, Swoobat,
Right.
Alolan Persian, right? Um,
Right.
Boltund, so Excelgor, Ninjask. Yeah, so it's a lot of so there are some fast Pokemon, but we're missing those things like Tapu Koko, Mega Manectric,
Exactly.
Mega Beedrill that we're just we do have Halucha still, but
And even
um
between like so base 100s, um, what is it? Base 86 below that, where if you're trying to speed creep, anything 85 or below, you can outspeed with adamant or timid nature, or adamant or modest nature with your base 100s. So I'm just scrolling through Showdown, and there's really once I get past the Silvally block, there really aren't that many great Pokemon between 86 and 100. Um, so that even makes the base 100 um, speed tier that much more important.
Yeah. So I think, and when we were looking over the teams, we'll point this out the farther, as we look at each team individually. But yeah, most teams don't have the same kind of speed that we saw in our previous seasons, where previously you might have two Pokemon at base 100, a base 110, a base, and then something that's maybe like 130 or something. So 130,
Yeah,
110, 100, 100, 90. And that's just not the case anymore, unless you've drafted a really speedy team and there's some sacrifices you're making there.
exactly. Yeah, so speed's a big thing. I think also hazards and hazard control is a bit different. Not only do a lot of the new Pokemon not have um, these moves, but um, like we used to have a lot of stealth rockers, ground types in general, but also like the floating um, psychic types like Uxie, that whole legendary line. Um, those used to be very, very viable stealth rockers for your teams. Um, so yeah, there's just like a lot of the ones that we used to go for aren't here anymore.
Right. Yeah. We're talking things like Swampert, Gliscor, Skarmory, Landorus, Crocodile, Metagross. There's a bunch of others. Yeah, Uxie in particular. Um, that were every team needed, like a must have on every
Right.
team. Would always get drafted, and so those are just wiped off the table. So um, I think my team, for example, I only have one stealth rocker, and I noticed it halfway through the draft, and I was looking, and there just wasn't it just wasn't available for
Yeah,
the point totals that I had left.
especially below the 100 point tier. It's like, okay, yeah, this gets stealth rocks, but is that the only thing it's giving my team? Is it just going to put up stealth rocks and die?
Right. So yeah, I think for these reasons. Oh yeah, let's talk about, there's some new moves, which people have been playing on the ladder, maybe but some of these moves um are really crazy and have a big change to the meta, I think. So like a move like Fishious Rend, Bolt Beak, Fire Lash, and Drum Beating. Drum Beating is a move.
Rillaboom,
Yeah,
signature
Rillaboom's
move.
special move.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are like very strong. So base 80 power, base 85 power, and then they have really strong secondary effects. So Fishious Rend and Bolt Beak multiply your attack by 2 if you're going
Hmm.
first. Fire Lash lowers defense 100% of the time. Drum Beating lowers speed 100% of the time, and they're strong. Those are strong base 80 power moves. So think almost like a flame charge, like a reverse flame charge,
Yeah.
for drum beating. So anyway, some of these moves are changing the meta a lot. Things like fairies getting mystical fire. So all fairies now can check steel types at least a little bit, at least threaten them on switch in.
Yep.
You're getting things like defensive Pokemon. So Avalugg gets Body Press, which will do damage based on your defense stat instead of your attack stat. So you're getting things like Iron Defense Body Press from Pokemon. Um, so anyway, there's just, yeah. In addition to the hazards being kind of weird. Oh yeah, a lot of new Pokemon got Rapid Spin.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of things that are really different that um, I think what we're gonna start to get at is that it's gonna make it hard for us to decide or
Right.
to tier these teams, like
This is
these drafts.
this is probably, besides our first draft league analysis, this is probably our least confident video, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. I fully expect one of the teams we think is not that good to come out and slap. So
Right. So there's I guess just to quickly finish about this generation, which has now been out for a few months now. There's new items. The most notable for draft league would be heavy duty boots. Um, which I found out today also eliminates the speed drop from sticky webs, um, which is interesting. But also things that maybe are more likely to have a unique one time use. couple time use thing in draft league that you might not see on the ladder would be things like throat spray, blender policy, eject pack, and room service. Um, eject pack um, sends you out if your brings your Pokemon back in if a stat is dropped, and then room service lowers speed under Trick Room, and then Blunder Policy gives you a boost when you miss an attack. So those items are probably more useful in Draft League than they would be on the ladder.
Yeah. And yeah, again, to finish, there's some other, so there's just some boxes that we used to say, we had that um, commendation. I don't know exactly, I forget what you call it, where we would say like checks all the boxes. Superlative. Yeah, we would say like checks all the boxes. And so some of the things that checked the boxes um, would be things like regenerator, things like intimidate, um, wish, or even defog. I think there's a lot fewer of this season. So those
Right,
things are less available in draft league.
right. Other things, so not only doing out of megas and a lot of the legendaries, but we're also limiting ourselves because we're doing 10 Pokemon draft this time. And there's some difficulties that come with that. I know a staple in my drafts is I would always try to draft um, an offensive water type and a defensive water type, whether it's like Vaporeon and Greninja or anything like that. I would do pretty regularly, like Seismitoad, Quillfish. Um, so um, so yeah, the doubling up on typings is a lot more costly when you have 10 Pokemon instead of 11. And then also those sort of traditional cores, Dragon, Fairy, Steel, Fire, Water, Grass, are a lot harder to fill. Um, because the dragons and the fairies and the steels are a lot more limited, so they cost more, but also there's just less.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So again, it's just very different. And we'll have to play it by ear as we go, but we're still going to make this video.
Right.
So why don't we switch our gaze over to some of the teams?
All right. So the first team we are looking at is the Driftville Drapion. They're the first overall pick, and they went with um, Dracovish right here. But we're deciding to go in draft order just to make it simple. And Dracovish was the number one overall pick. Adam, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think so. Dracovish is tearing up the ladder in OU, right? So it's base 75 speed. We talked about Fishious Rend already, but Fishious Rend with Strong Jaw, and sometimes it's running a choice band or a choice scarf. So what did we decide? We did the calc on the base power, right?
Yeah,
It
so
was
it's a stab move, so it's 50% times
yeah
50 more percent because of
for
strong jaw
Strong Jaw
times
times
two,
two because
so
of it's 85 times 1.5 times 1.5 times 2, which is
85 times 1.5 times 1.5 times 2. Yeah, 382 and a half base
yeah.
base
So
power functionally.
it's it's incredible. So it obviously hits incredibly hard, and then to pair that with the two sticky web users in Galvantula and Bombi, I think is incredibly smart.
Right.
One thing, this is actually why we were testing out about the heavy duty boots, just trying to decide, how much are heavy duty boots going to inhibit Dracovish's ability to succeed on this team. That's still something I'm curious about.
Right. And we were trying to find the knockoff users. Is it only Centiscorch?
Yeah, Centiscorch, and
Um,
that I believe that was it.
right.
Um,
Also looking at his team, he's pretty weak to Stealth Rocks. He's got a lot of good. He's got two good spinners in Claydol and Avalugg. They're low tier, but I think they'll get the job done for him. And then he has a Defogger and Silvally. Silvally's going to be really good um, this time around. We think because it can be any type, which when you have one less Pokemon is going to be that much more useful. But also because its signature move is now base power 120. Um, so a stab 120 move on Silvally of any type is going to be really good. And so yeah, I think that there's a little bit of a stealth rock weakness on his team. It's Galvantula, Rabambi, Avalugg, Scorch, Ice Cube are all weak to rocks. Um, and um, looking at his team's definitely offensive. It's like Webb's offense: get Dracovish in, claim lives, Quiver Dance Rabambi or Life Orb Galvantula, maybe Coil Scorch. So there's like a lot of, and obviously the Belly Drum Ice Cube. Um, there's a lot of like setup and mow through teams. So um, being weak to rocks isn't the worst thing, but it is something to note that if the games start lasting a while, um, then the Drapion's opponent is going to start having a better look.
Yeah, and I think one last thing about this team is, you know, Galvantula and Rabambi, we're talking about as sticky web users. Are also special attackers, but in general, this team is very physically based. So Dracovish again, so Valley gets Swords Dance, Avalugg Body Press, and Scorch and Ice Cube.
Hmm.
So that's kind of that's how I feel about the character of this team. It's very physical, very offensive. It should be really fun to play, and I hope the
Right.
I don't know. I'm excited to see how the Drapions do with it.
Right. I would also say so. One thing I trying to look at on each team is how they dealt with their low tier picks and what type of cores they have. So they have the Webs, Dracovish, we'll call that core, but also the defensive core of um, Avalugg, Claydol, Dusclops is pretty good for using a lot of low tiers to build it. So those are some things that I'll be looking at. And then also he has two Pokemon over 100 speed plus Silvally at base speed 95. So he's still able to retain a lot of speed in this limited format.
Hmm. Yeah,
Overall, you like this team?
yeah, I like this team a lot. I think it'll be really cool. I can't remember if I face them or not, um, but yeah, I think there are going to be some fun splashable replays to
Oh
come out
yeah.
of this.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
yeah, best of luck.
So next up is Cobalions.
I believe so, yes, because they took the Pokemon that I wanted, which was Cinderace. But that's okay. I'm sure everyone wanted Cinderace.
Yeah. Great ability,
Um,
great speed.
and it was so uh, as I was watching the draft, Ryan took Cinderace, and then Dracozolt, and I could tell it's very um, kind of the philosophy that I've heard from Ryan. I've heard from you is take the best Pokemon that's still on the board. Um, and I felt like after the second round, we had to stop doing that because of the way that our tiering system is this time. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely Cinderace, Dracozolt. I see. Um, the rest of the team trying to be built around these two.
Right.
Um,
And Blastoise too. Um,
right.
Getting this generation, it gets Shell Smash. So it's not only can just be like standard Blastoise defense with Rapid Spin, but with Shell Smash, it can now be a sweeper.
Yeah, which is great. This team also gets webs in Slurpuff. Um, and belly drum setup there. So yeah, some nice physical and special setup. Um, yeah, I noticed that this team's it's fairly ground weak. So you have
Hmm.
Cinderace and Dracozolt. So for having these top two picks both be ground weak, I was hoping to see a few more resistances, but
Yeah.
you're still getting Skunk Tank and Perkester. And Vileplume doesn't really appreciate
Gorgeist is pretty
Earthquakes.
good. Gorgeist having base defense 122 is pretty good, and but yeah, relying on Gorgeist and Hippopotas to be your answers to ground Pokemon um, might be difficult long term.
Yeah, so that was my one of the things that stuck out to me, um, about this team, but I think I like this team a lot.
Yeah, I like this team a lot too. I think it's in the top 5 for me. Um, yeah, it's in the top 5. Uh, I think that it has some like the rapid spin is good. It has some um the hazards aren't great for a team that's as offensive as this. It has webs, it has rocks from some low tiers. Um and it's kind of top heavy as well. Um I don't think these low tiers are nearly as strong as the last low tiers we saw. The meme pick with Galarian Slowpoke and Hippopotas. Vileplume's pretty good for the cost. Um, Skuntank, I would say, is middling, but
And
half of his
Skunk Tank
team.
gets T-spikes, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry,
Half,
keep going.
yeah, you're fine. Half of his team is tier 80 and below. So, um,
Mhm.
I think that he can very strongly bring the top 3 Pokemon every week, maybe Vileplume, maybe Gourgeist, and then it might be difficult to figure out which would be the next 2 or 1 that would be helpful for the team.
Mhm.
But I really
Yeah.
like I think that the offensive core at the top of the ticket um, are good enough that um, yeah, that it's still going to be a really strong team. There's only a few coaches that picked 2 tier 200 Pokemon. Um, and I think he did a good job at least of finding like a top 3 that are just like you maybe only have one answer to Dracozolt. And if you use your answer for Dracozolt, do you now have an answer for late game Blastoise? Maybe not.
Right. Yeah.
So
Um,
I was
yeah, I
very
think
critical of this team, but I really like it.
yeah, I think it's great. And I think again, speed tiers are a little bit difficult to see from this side, but they're not terrible. If
Hmm.
I remember from when we had them sorted
Right. The
earlier.
Gourgeist is
So.
misleading because it gets all the different forms, but you should probably rarely run the fast form. But as base speed 119 and then it's like 84, 78, 75. So there's a pretty big gap, but I think it's manageable with webs and with the utility that he has.
Mhm.
Cool.
All right.
Next
Three
up.
was
Yep.
Hippopotas. So the Hippopotas had some trades. And so if I'm remembering right, it was Barraskewda and someone else for Poltegeist and Vaporeon.
Hmm.
Um, it really changes the Barraskewda is the POTUS's first pick. So this really changes the character of the team to me. And as I was looking at it, I noticed that this team actually, so Poltegeist is the win con in my mind, usually. So it'd be like, maybe Mamoswine breaking and set up Poltegeist
Hmm.
winning. Um, but I think this team actually does work very well with Poltegeist. And I especially like, so my experiences on the ladder with Poltegeist, one of the things that makes it really nasty is that you run Focus Sash and then you can Giga Drain back up to full health and like get your Focus Sash back again.
Oh, cool.
And so especially combining that with Grassy Surge in Rillaboom, I think will be really neat.
Yeah, that'll be
Um,
a cool combo.
yeah, so that's something that stuck out to me. Um, yeah, I think I'm because of the quick trades. I'm just interested to see how it goes. And if it
Right.
winds up feeling like the team is built around Poltegeist, like it might have been if Brian had drafted it in the beginning.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because after the trades now, I think Brian's team is the other one without a tier 200. Um, so that actually gives him a lot of wiggle room below. Like he has only 3 Pokemon that are below tier 100. Um, and so with a lot of these middle Pokemon, um, I think he can do a job about um, It's like a pro and a con. The pro is that his team is deeper than other teams, and then the con would be that he might be missing out on just that one busted Pokemon um, that your opponent has to use a lot of resources to get around.
Yeah, I think I'm I'm hoping that Brian will find some utility for things like Vikavolt and Scrafty, right? Like right on the lower end
Hmm.
of the tier. Vikavolt, Scrafty, Noivern. I
Yep.
think Vaporeon has a place on this team, and
Yeah,
I think these other Pokemon will fit.
Noivern
But
could be offensive, or it could actually I could see it playing a defensive role on this team. It's has basically the same defensive stats as was it what's Golbat's evolution? Crobat.
Crobat,
As
yep,
Crobat, and with less access to ice moves because no hidden power, Noivern could actually potentially be a decent defensive Pokemon for this team. And then also with, um, oh gosh, what's that item that you you switch out after you drop your stats?
Pack.
Yeah, so I mean, if you find yourself in a situation where you want to um, use the eject pack but run um, Draco Meteor, you can Draco switch out, go to something like Vaporeon, which would take whatever ice attack was being sent towards Noivern.
Yeah, that's great. I like that idea. I hadn't thought about it that way. I had imagined it being used to like pivot away from an intimidate user or something. That's cool. That gives it eject pack a lot of utility.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully, I mean, Noivern also gets things like U-turn, so um, some heavy duty boots still might be the better item most weeks. Um,
Right.
but we'll see.
That's definitely
Um, yeah, the more I look at this team, I've had less time looking at this team because we're assessing it after the trades. The more I think that Brian's going to be really successful with it. I was originally pretty critical with it because the speed tiers are as low as they are, and because I really wanted to see one Pokemon that really scared the heck out of me. Maybe that's Poltegeist, and I don't know yet.
Yeah, I think there's some nice staples on this team, even from previous gens. Like I know Brian's had success with Vaporeon and Meowstic in the
Hmm.
past. And yeah, I think Poltegeist is pretty scary, and I hope you can use it well.
Right. So cool team. We are going on to Connor's team.
Yes. I like this team. I like the core. Yeah, I think Jirachi Togekiss is really wonderful. The flinch core, it's gonna be annoying as hell, but
Yeah,
yeah.
he's got a few Pokemon with Thunder Wave, and Togekiss, Toxtricity, and Boltund to try to slow things down. Also, I don't know if Flygon gets Bulldoze. Um, Mr. Mime gets that. What's the ice move that lower speed?
Oh, Icy Wind.
Yeah, so things like that can really that's where this team is going to thrive is to get things at a low enough speed that you can just air slash and iron head, flinch everything. Um,
Hmm.
so Flygon's
I
not
think
actually a bad dragon this generation either. Physical
yeah,
dragon
with
with ground dragon moves. It has U-turn, it has defog, has it gets roost.
yep,
It gets roost. Yeah.
yeah, Levitate. Yeah, and I think Ditto is really, really good this gen, especially with in draft league in particular with our teams looking like a couple really busted mons and like some really bad, some lower tiers that can't pull very much weight. So just figure out what's the right, Dracovish. You copy that. Okay,
Right.
now you're doing a lot. So
Right. So yeah, I think that this team in general, if it can do what it wants to do, it's going to be really good. I think just up against some other teams, it might have some difficulty doing that. Just thinking about Cinderace as an example of just one Pokemon that's one of the like first round picks that I think looks really good against this team. I think there are other instances where there are first round picks that look good against this team. Um, and so Ditto is probably going to be a staple on the team. When you know Ditto is going to come, it's a little bit easier to play around. So there might be some limitations in the variety of win cons. Um, but if Connor can put himself in in that same position each week, then I think he can do pretty good.
Absolutely. Um, yep. Yeah, I think I'll just say some stuff about the low tiers. Yeah, I think Thwacky is actually like pretty decent with an Eviolite.
And it gets
And
grassy surge.
yeah, which is nice for Jirachi. So I think that'll be good. Torcat, I'm not convinced on, but there aren't that many Intimidate users, so I think that's exciting. And then Delibird has a niche in that it gets Stealth Rocks and Rapid Spin, or not Stealth Rock, Spikes and Rapid Spin.
Yep.
Even though its stats are, not that good. So
Yeah, I think this dropped in my rankings because of its low tiers. Um, I just find it that because his best Pokemon aren't the most offensive in most situations, then he's going to be even more having to bring them every week. So it's like I think Jirachi, Togekiss, um, mm, sometimes Toxtricity, Ditto, Flygon are coming every single week, and I just don't know if these low tiers are enough to patch, maybe, or just enough to be called on and do the things that he'll want them to do each week. Not having a bulky water type um, might hurt his
mhm.
team in the long run.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, they also like Jirachi and Flygon are the Stealth Rock users, and those are two of the more versatile Pokemon on his team. So luckily he's got the other one. So if he wants to not run Stealth Rocks on Jirachi, then you can run it on Flygon. Um, but that was just one thing I was looking at too. Is like two of the Pokemon that you would probably get stuck in 4 moveset syndrome are the ones that you also want to have Stealth Rocks on.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Yep. But at the same time, to even have two really viable Stealth Rockers
Sure,
is more than most teams have this season. So,
that's also true.
um, yeah. All right. Who's up next?
Orlando Magikarp. Man,
Hey.
he got Excadrill first round, and then what was his second round pick? Was it Bronzong? No, it was it Haxorus?
Orbeetle, I think,
Orbeetle.
right?
I'm gonna look.
I think it was Orbeetle. And at the time,
And
I
then
thought it was funny.
Alchemy.
And yeah, at the time, I thought it was funny. But when I went back and looked at some of the things Orbeetle does, like Sticky Web, Recover with really good defenses, it's a great ground switch in, and it might be under tiered for us, tier 100. So I
Yeah,
think, yeah,
so I thought that he did a good job of dipping into the low tiers early and then late round getting something like Haxorus. But he got Excadrill, Orbeetle, Bronzong, Alchemy, and then Inteleon. So it's 5 rounds before he got anything greater than 120 besides his first round pick. Um, and man, I was really cheering for him during the draft because I was like, dang, this team started out like, wait, what are you doing? And then just sort of found a way. So it ended up being one of my favorite teams, I think.
yeah, I think this team is really good, especially Haxorus, base 97 speed. Maybe in previous gens, it felt a little bit bad. Haxorus doesn't get Dragon Dance, I don't think so.
Yeah,
Um,
Dragon
it
Dance and Sword Dance.
Oh, is Dragon Dance new this gen?
No,
Okay, well, anyway, previously
sorry.
it's at below that. That's fine. Just I know one of them doesn't get Dragon Dance, and it's
Yeah,
a
Garchomp.
not hack Garchomp, yeah, not Haxorus apparently. But anyway, sitting below that base 100 speed plateau was made it in my mind not very good last season um, or in previous gens, but I think base 97 speed is a lot better now, and it gets some different moves. So it gets, I believe it's close combat instead of superpower.
Mhm.
Um, and maybe it had close combat. I could be, maybe I'm just wrong about
That's
everything,
fine.
but it also gets first impression, which is really cool priority bug move. So anyway, I think that is something you might see
Right.
being run as choice band first impression.
Not counting abilities that can raise your base stat total, but just going straightly off of base stat total, Haxorus has the biggest attack stat in Generation 8.
Wow.
147 base attack. And with that sort of speed, you can just run choice band Haxorus and just kill everything. And so one thing that I really like about this team that I don't see in other teams is a Pokemon as centralizing as Haxorus to how I might have to build around it. I'm playing him week 1. He also has Excadrill. And Excadrill has different stab. And it's also on the same it's on the physical side as well. So it's a very difficult combo, and luckily he has defensive options to switch in so that Haxorus and Excadrill um, can get in there, fire off some strong attacks, and then sort of retreat into Bronzong or Alchemy.
Wow. And so you were saying that Haxorus is the strongest attack stat in Gen 8. And
Yes,
Excadrill is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th strongest attack stat in Gen
right.
8. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Tied with Gygalith.
right.
Um,
And Inteleon isn't too far behind. I mean, there's a lot of Pokemon that share its base 125 special attack, like Gardevoir and Reuniclus and Hydreigon. But as when it comes to special attack, um, like the highest it gets is 145. So it's not too much worse than that.
yeah.
So just
Looking at
pretty
okay.
offensive.
And looking at Ben's speed tiers, I think they look very good, and especially when you consider Morpico's Aura Wheel boosting its speed in a pretty consistent and easy way.
And also gets
Um,
rapid spin.
yeah, what the heck? How does Morpico get rapid
Probably
spin?
because it
That's
uses its gerbil hamster wheel.
yeah. So yeah, so you're getting rapid spin. I think Shiftry gets defog. Excadrill gets rapid spin. So we're gonna be seeing that. That's gonna help Ben keep webs up on the opponent's side of the field. So um, yeah, this is gonna be a really hard team to face, I think.
Right. And I have to do it week 1.
Hey.
So Ben, let's schedule tomorrow so that you so you don't have time to build. Um, cool. Do you have anything else to say about this? Let me just check my notes. Oh, he did it.
um
Like, given how scary his team is, like Morpico's great for low tier. Flareon's pretty okay. Given heavy duty boots and its attack stat is also one of the best. Um, he didn't. He's one of 2 coaches that didn't get a tier 40 Pokemon. So somehow he got such a stacked high high tier without having to just fall into the worst of the Pokemon. So props to Ben.
yeah. Yeah. This team is great. I really like this one.
All right. Next is Anchorage Ninetales, and then we're going to take a little bit of break on our end.
I hope you should play some theme music in between. Like our commercial break, and then we
Oh,
can we can
nice.
do our sponsors in the middle, right?
Nice. I'll add a sponsor for the new Coco movie coming out.
Oh, I didn't know there's a new Coco movie coming out.
No, Coco, the Pokemon movie. You'll
Oh,
have to watch the
oh,
sponsored ad in the middle.
oh.
And Squarespace. We'll get a Squarespace
Screw the
monster.
yeah, Harry's razors, right?
Yeah.
Or
Me
Dollar Shave
undies.
Club. Yeah. Nature Box.
What's the one where you can learn? What's the one where you can teach people things?
Oh shit. I don't know. I
I'll
don't know
find it. It'll also be it'll be a 3 ad roll in the middle.
it.
All right. So we
So
have
this team, yeah.
Anchorage Nine Tails. First pick was Ferrothorn.
Yeah, I think Ferrothorn is I mean, Fairthorn's been a staple in our league for a long time. Fairthorn has been a staple in OU for a long time. Everybody's familiar with what it does. Um, for me, you were talking about earlier, Kyle, that there are fewer fire types this gen than there have been in the past,
Hmm.
um, which would seem to make Fairthorn um, a little bit improved, maybe. But one thing is with the introduction of Mystic Fire or more Pokemon getting it.
Hmm.
Um, so things like
The
um,
fairies.
yeah,
Alchemy.
the fairies, um, yeah. I Sylveon is the name I was trying to come up with. So like Sylveon, something that Ferrothorn used to always switch into always with no concern ever for
Mm,
anything. Now it has to watch out for, maybe it could be two hit KO'd
yeah.
by a Mystic Fire. So that's something that is, anyway, something to watch out for Ferrothorn.
Luckily, there's no
Um,
hidden power, so at least your
right,
water types are going to be able to come in and click HP fire.
right. That's absolutely true. Um, but I think this team definitely relies on some hazards. So especially with Ferrothorn and then Magic Bounce user,
Hmm.
Hitmonlee with Rapid Spin. Um, and you can even see as we're going through these teams how many Pokemon have Rapid Spin compared to previous gens.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think about this team?
I think it's missing a key component, which is something that can hit hard right away. Um, Maybe you have that with Hatterene or Chandelure, but these are slow Pokemon. And with like some minimally small, like not the best defenses, that can be difficult. Um, if it was this team plus Haxorus, I think I would really like it. If it was this team plus Kyurem, then I would really like it. Um, but missing that sort of busted Pokemon that just hits hard and is fast, um, really hurts this team. Um, I like the best attackers are Flapple, Chandelure, Hatterene, and all of those benefit from um, one free turn. Flapple can Dragon Dance, Hatterene or Chandelure can Trick Room, um, and then they can be good. But it seems like maybe Jolteon is the best thing that just hits right away, unless you're going to choice scarf something. Maybe Hitmonlee this generation with rapid spin giving it the speed boost. Um, but yeah, I think that not having a busted Pokemon and having low tiers that I'm not really too much of a fan of, um, I think that Brian might find it difficult to get his win cons um, in place.
Yeah, I'll be curious. Um, so my kind of thinking about this team is that I think the top six look pretty good. Ferrothorn, Chandelure, Hatterene, Hitmonlee, Flapple, Jolteon.
Hmm.
But looking at the bottom four, I'm just wondering what the utility is, or
Why you
what's
would
the
ever bring
purpose.
those over the top six?
Right. Yeah, I could maybe see like a water absorb lantern versus Dracovish or something like that. Um, but yeah, especially the bottom like Lipard, Persian, and Noctowl. And maybe Brian will prove me wrong, but I am not understanding kind of where those fit in with the rest of the team.
I think having some of those normal types is good because Hatterene and Chandelure, um, I'd be afraid of like Specs Dragapult against this team.
Hmm.
Um, Still, though, then you're relying on your tier 40 Noctowl or your tier 60 Persian to be your answer to Specs Dragapult. So, um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's a little bit of what I see as the problems. One thing that I was talking about with Adam yesterday, um, with trying to plan this whole thing is like what meta shifts are there? And I don't know if electric types are as good or necessary as previous generations. Um, Previously, your electric types helped because they gave you a reliable pivot option. They were usually fast and but their move pool was always not that great. Um, and usually it would be like Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, maybe a status move, maybe Substitute or Calm Mind if it's Raikou. Um, and then um, usually
Power
your big
Ice.
cover, yeah, usually your coverage move was HP Fire or HP Ice or HP Bug um, in random situations in Draft League. So um, while electric types, I think overall have been nerfed relative to the rest of the field. I think Jolteon benefits from being kind of first generation Pokemon where it still has a lot of coverage moves. It still has the Shadow Ball and the Bug Buzz to be able to, I guess, add to its move pool. So Jolteon, I'm actually really happy with on this team, and it gives him a electric immunity.
Yeah, I think I also think there's a fun opportunity for Trick Room just with like Hatterene and Ferrothorn, and you could even run like a slow Hitmonlee or something or
Yeah,
slow
this
Flapple
might
in
be a
there.
team that could like Flapple with that room service. Um,
Mm.
could be
Mm-hmm.
interesting, or
Yep.
Hitmonlee with room service, throwing off high jump kicks. Um,
Yeah.
so there's
Something I
some
would love
things
to.
here, but yeah, like I said, I don't really. Um, if there was like a um, what are those called? Heat maps of like win cons. I would say there's just the heat map is a lot smaller for this one.
Hmm. That's a good way to put it.
What were you gonna say?
So,
You were gonna say something you liked.
yeah, something I'd like to see is this is just something fun. So Flapple has Ripen, which doubles the effect of berries, and so I think there's some fun opportunities, probably for like a clever berry to be used in the right situation with
Or
Flapple.
stall
Um,
Flapple,
yeah, so I don't know if it gets whatever the move is that will like regenerate your berry, um,
gluttony.
but
Oh no, that's a refract or recycle.
recycle. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know if Flapple gets recycle, but anyway, I think that would be cool, and I'm interested to. I
it
want to
does get
see how this
recycled.
team works out. Oh, cool. So
So
yeah,
cool.
make that work for me because anyway, I'll enjoy watching that match.
Next is Las Vegas Venusaurs, and here's our commercial break. All right, welcome back from that commercial break, sponsored by Squarespace. Here is Las Vegas Venusaurs. Adam, tell me about this impressive team.
Pick one, Dragapult. Pick two, Sylveon. Pick three, Cobalion. That's it. What else do I have to say?
Yeah, I mean the
Um,
supporting cast is also good, so you could talk about those.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's in a new format where it's very hard to check all the boxes. I feel like this team checks all the boxes. Like I just mentioned that like really great Dragon Fairy Steel Core. It's even got a Firewater Grass Core,
Mhm.
Darmanitan,
Pretty good one
Tsarina
too.
Quagsire. Yeah, good one. Both of those are very good. Rotom Frost is especially I think it gets better with heavy duty boots. So now you're coming in, you're having that defogger, you have Zarina as a rapid spinner, Cobalion's a great rocker. You have like this weird low tier combo in Pincurchin sets Electric Terrain, and then Thievewool has Unburden.
Mhm.
Um, so that's kind of a weird niche thing. Um, I just like it. I think it's great. Dragapult is, obviously a great mixed attacker. So you can run Life Orb with Flamethrower, Draco Meteor, and like Sucker Punch or something like that. So I
Yeah.
think this is just Zarina with Rapid Spin is starting to look really good with that base 120 attack and +1 speed. So and Queenly Majesty
Yeah.
preventing priority. So I think this team looks really great.
Yeah, thinking about Dragapult as the first pick and asking the question of does this team service that Pokemon? I think it really does. I think it um, gives a lot of pivot options with Cobalion, Baton Pass Sylveon, U-turn Darmanitan, U-turn Sarina, Volt Switch, Rotom Frost. Um, I think Parting Shot, Thievul. Um, that might not be true. Um,
Yep.
it
Yep.
is. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, there's a lot of pivot options to get to what you need to get to. Um, Dragapult is a really offensive Pokemon this generation, even though its attack and special attack aren't that great. Its typing is great offensively, and it has quite a few options. Um, but it also has some cool, I guess, support moves. It gets some status moves that Generation 8 Pokemon don't normally get. It gets, yeah, so it can run a lot of sets. And so the big challenge was whether or not Sean could draft a team that allowed Dragapult to run all those sets. And I think that honestly, this is good. If I had a criticism, it would be the lack of hazards that this team has, because Dragapult with an attack of 120 and a special attack of 100 um, could benefit from that prior chip damage of constantly, like, especially with a team that pivots as well and as often as this team can. Um, I think if you could ensure that a spike was up or rocks were up all the time, um, then this team would look even better. It's already one of my favorite teams, um, but Cobalion, especially without Z moves, that only has base 90 attack and special attack. Um, so um, you're running Sword Stance or Calm Mind. You're running maybe Stab plus Rock Slide. Um, it might be tough to do what you want to do with Cobalion if you feel like you have to put rocks on it.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
It's by no means
Yeah,
bad, but this is one of those
no,
teams that only has one rocker.
yeah, things like you'll see later. My team only has one rocker too. Yeah, if Quagsire, could have been traded up for Seismitoad. Obviously, points don't allow for that. But we're noticing it's very noticeable the lack of rockers that are available. Even.
Right.
Um, yep.
Pincurchin does
Mr.
get T
Mime.
spikes.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. Um, Yeah, Mr. Mime we haven't talked about at all. I'm curious. It's base 90 speed with 100 special attack, so and technician. I don't know, maybe you can put a choice specs on it. Not really sure.
Gets
I don't
Nasty
have very
Plot.
much. Let's there you go. Used to be is it? And anyways, it used to be like one of the lower tier staples in the previous gen,
Yeah.
like an NU, like common NU Pokemon or something.
Yeah.
So
Especially with
mm,
Z moves, it was good because the Psychic and the Fairy Z moves were great.
right. Yeah. I think I think this team is great. There's even a lot of different like typing coverage
Yeah.
that Sean has here, which is something that as we've gone through the other teams, like really hasn't been the case.
Yeah, so he's
Uh,
got normal and fighting immunity in Dragapult, poison
mhm,
immunity in Cobalion, dragon immunity in Sylveon. Um, Quagsire gets water immunity. It also depending on its ability, and an electric immunity, ground immunity
mhm,
in Rotom Frost. Um, so and then Pincurchin also gets Lightning Rod, um, and Thievul gets Psychic Immunity. So that's and Mr. Mime gets Dragon Immunity. So that's 10 immunities in 10 Pokemon,
Yeah.
which
One
is
thing
cool.
I would have loved to see is a normal type on this team with Dragapult, just to so you can um, switch in on something like a Shadow Sneak from Aegislash.
Oh yeah, or
Um,
Scarf, or like a Scarf Shadow Ball user.
yep. Yeah, just a way to scout for scarfs.
Yep.
I think would be great. But um, yeah, I mean, I don't think this team is necessarily missing it.
Right.
But it would be nice to have if you had an 11 Pokemon.
Right. And with things like Sarina, Darmanitan, Rotom Frost as potential offensive threats, then like Sylveon with a base special defense of 130 and Cobalion with a base defense of 129, that's really good.
Hmm.
That just really sets you up for being more flexible with your other Pokemon. That's not even counting Sarina, which previously was a defensive Pokemon, Quagsire, which is previously a defensive Pokemon, and Rotom Frost, now with the heavy duty boots, becoming a potentially defensive Pokemon um, with good defense and special defense base stats.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Overall, I think, yeah, great job, Sean. That
Yeah,
looks good.
one of my favorite teams. Clearly, you'll see it in my in how we rank them at the end.
Hmm.
Speaking of one of my favorite teams,
Oh, is it time for the
my other favorite
Braviaries?
team.
Yeah, you love this team. What do you love about this team?
Um, it has some pretty tried and true ways to win. If you are playing OU right now, one of the most common successful balance cores for defense would be Mandibuzz Seismitoad, and Colin got both of those. Um, and thinking about that also, you also want coverage for Seismitoad and coverage for Mandibuzz, electric attacks and grass type attacks that could be going into either of those to break apart your defense, and Rotomo is there to combat that. So just that kind of workaround is really cool. I think Rotomo and Salazzle are potentially really good wall breakers for this team, but also in this generation. I think Salazzle's sludge waves hit a lot harder on a fairy pool that is a lot weaker. Um, and Flamethrower's sludge wave hits so much. Um, Also, with the fairy pool that is a lot smaller, Aromatisse becoming what was a joke to a Pokemon that is now a fairy with Trick Room options and also Wish support. I think it's the um, out of all, I think like good Pokemon, I think it has the highest HP stat that it can wish to something else. Um, so and then it's like Hitmontop, really good tier 100 Pokemon with Intimidate and Technician. And then I don't think his low tiers are bad. I maybe would have picked something different for um, Beartick. Um, I'm curious if he got it. Well, I mean, it does have base 130 attack. So maybe it's just some choice band trick room abuser. Um, but it also gets Swift Swim. I'm curious if there's going to be some rando week where he runs Rain Dance on something in Seismitoad and Beartick. Um, just go on a rain onslaught. Um, Dollar's not bad for being a tier 4 with a Violite. Its defenses are make it really almost like a different typed Toxapex in some ways. And it gets the sticky webs as well and recover. Dracloak is pretty good for that. Now, both of those two Pokemon were Pokemon that I highlighted that I would like to grab out of the lowest tier. Um, and I said all of that without even mentioning the top one pick, which was Aegislash. I think the team by itself already does well, and then Aegislash can help either defensively or offensively. Hopefully, offensively every week to end up cleaning up with the Swords Dance and Shadow Sneak uh, to win.
Yeah, I don't think there's a throwaway pick on this entire team.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think I mean, you hit a lot of the points, but there's a lot of pivot options, even just back and forth between Mandibuzz and Rotom Mo, and then with Intimidate on Hitmontop. I believe Dracolock also gets U-turn. Um, so I think this team's just I think it's great. Um, very balanced, and I'm excited to see it used.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which team has just an advantage, like has that one Pokemon that can run through most of this team. And I think that just the even with Mandibuzz, Rotom-Mow, Seismitoad, and the six typings that are covered there, it's gonna be really hard for a team to just be like, oh, this 6-0's. Um, so good job, Colin. This is really, really, really impressive. I like this team a lot. Um, if there's some criticisms, it might be the speed tiers because after Salazzle and then your tier 40, it's a lot of slow things. Granted, there is priority with Hitmontop and Aegislash, um, but I mean, you're not running max speed Mandibuzz. So it's like goes among your best Pokemon. It's like Salazzle, then Rotom-Mow, and then offensive Seismitoad, but it gets slow very fast.
Yeah, all good things to keep in mind as you're building. And yeah, I think one thing that I want to say about this season is that the um, because there's only 10 Pokemon, there are a lot of teams that have like certain holes that they couldn't fill. And it we picked the schedule after we drafted, so nobody was able to draft with the schedule in mind. But I think that some teams are going to get lucky where the hole that they have happens to it just so happens that the teams they're facing don't have the best way to take advantage
Hmm.
of those holes. So I think we might see certain teams where they have a weakness happen to face teams that are really strong in that suit, and
Right,
they just have a harder season than other teams.
right. Interesting. That's a good perspective. All right, Adam, what do you like
Yeah,
about your team and what makes you skeptical about your team?
yeah. So this is good. Thanks for letting me talk about my own team. Usually
Yeah.
we do it the other way around. I'm excited to get Corviknight. To be honest, I was assuming I wanted Corviknight, but I was assuming that it would be gone by the time it got to me.
Right, you
So
were what, like
I
8th or ninth?
yeah. So I
Ninth?
built my team like my top basically my core, I was like, oh, this is gonna be great with Terrakion. So I was gonna do like Terrakion, Galarian Weezing, Rotom Heat, something like that. And I was like, you know what? I'll just put Corviknight because the way that you can enter it in with a backup pick. Like, I was like, you know what? I'll just put Corviknight as my first one, and then Terrakion as my backup. And so here I am with Corviknight, and I'm excited to use it. Um, I think it really changes the character of the team that I was going for, to not have Terrakion and instead have this like super defensive Pokemon. So now I have this very slow team, um, which is it's a little embarrassing. But yeah, look at this. Corviknight is 67, Galarian Weezing is 60, Gastrodon is 39, Drampa's 36, Colossal's 30, Duosion's 30. Like it's very slow. It's
I don't
very,
think
very
you're
slow.
intentionally being misleading about how defensive Corviknight is, because the offensive versions of Corviknight are very scary. Those are the ones that you can see on the ladder with like Bulk Up and Brave Bird and Roost, and it has enough def and special defense that nothing's one hit killing it, so it can just set up at any point if you find that you're losing the game. Bring in Corviknight, click a setup move, and you'll fight your way back in.
That's definitely true. And one thing I've noticed with Corviknight is cool is that a lot of electric types will only run Volt Switch. And so things like if you run into Rotom Wash on the ladder or something,
Yeah.
and it clicks Volt Switch, you just, maybe you have a sub out or something. You just click Roost. That's fine. Um, even if it's faster, it happens before your roost. Like they can't actually kill you.
Exactly.
I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about how Galarian Weezing, and Obstagoon work together with
Yeah.
just like fighting, super fighting resist, and fighting weakness. So I'm excited to try out like a Flame Orb Guts set. Stab Facade is so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. There, I mean, maybe I'm just misremembering, but I feel like in Gen 7, some Pokemon got Facade. A lot of Pokemon got Facade, but not very many of them stabbed Facade.
Yeah.
Or the ones that didn't run it.
Yeah, there's not
Uh,
many really good offensive normal types.
right. So, to me, it's just very exciting. Um, I think overall it has good defenses also. It's like very bulky, 93, 101, 81.
Hmm.
So I'm really pleased with that. I think also there's a lot of opportunity for me to run Defiant Obstagoons with I have um, Toxic Spikes with Galarian Weezing. I have Spikes with Frostlass. I have Spikes and Rocks with Colossal. So I'm hoping with this more defensive team that I can do a little bit of pivoting, maybe between Rotom and Corviknight, um, and have different, have some hazards out, and then switch into a Defiant Obstagoon,
Yeah. You have
something
enough
like that.
defense. You have enough defense on your team that you'll still be able to be versatile with your top three Pokemon. Rotom Heat, Gastrodon, Colossal, Duosion, and then whichever of your top three is going to be defensive that week, can very much be the defensive backbone. Um, and that can alternate each week. So that one week it's Obstagoon on defense, the next week it's Corviknight on defense, etc. One thing that I also like is um, going into this draft, if I had to name top five Pokemon from the new generation that are interesting, that I'd like to work with, that seem to be very versatile, but I don't but I want to use them, are like Dragapult, Inteleon, Corviknight, Obstagoon, Grimmsnarl, Galarian Weezing. Probably that's I just named six, but there's like you got three Pokemon that are very much like um I think could be really cool in draft league from this new generation, and you got them all on your team.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I am excited because I think they're very versatile. And like Obstagoon gets parting shot, I believe. So like that's weird,
Yeah,
Galarian Weezing, you can run like a Specs Fire Blast set.
yeah.
Or just like the way to like try the different abilities out. Anyway, I'm just very excited. I think it'll make team building fun. And who knows if it'll be good, but I'm excited.
So your only rocker is Colossal. You
Yeah,
have
that's
T Spikes
disappointing.
and Wheezing, and you have Spikes and Frostlass.
And
So
Colossal.
and Colossal. Oh, that gets Spikes.
Yep.
Cool.
And it gets Rapid Spin.
Yeah, that's cool. So so you have some relatively you have quite a bit of hazards on your team, but none of them are from your best Pokemon. If
Right.
Gastrodon got Stealth Rocks, it would be awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. I
so
agree.
so yeah, you have some yeah. I think those are really cool. There was also and it became a sort of a staple in our league that if you drafted Celesteela, you also drafted a water ground type, whether it was Swampert or Seismitoad or Gastrodon, and so you have the new generation Steel Flying type with Gastrodon. So great synergy
Yeah.
there.
Thank you.
You are the
Yeah.
also
Gotta
the
do it.
you're the only other you are and Ben were the only two people that didn't draft tier 40s. So, and
Oh, yeah.
I think you did a good job with it. It doesn't feel like your team is too spread, like because the one scare with never getting a tier 40 is that you just have a lot of middling Pokemon, but I think that you actually do have a good balance. I think that Rotom Heat and Obstagoon are really good value for their tier, and then you just skip down to tier 100 to grab Gastrodon. So you saved a lot of points in good areas, I thought.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope that things like Frostlass and Gastrodon and Drampa will prove useful. And honestly, I want Colossal and Duosion and Leafeon to do well too. So hopefully it winds up being useful.
Hmm. Cool.
All right, let's move on to your team. Why don't you tell me what you like about your team?
Well, so
Tell me what you feel about it.
I listed a bunch of new Pokemon that I would love to try out, and I didn't get any of them. And I think Raboot is the only Generation
Raboot.
8 Pokemon,
Yeah.
which I needed to get. So I'm happy that it lasted until round 6, so I was able to pick it up. And um, yeah, I okay. With that being said, I made a list. Being so late in the draft, I didn't think I would get any of the top tier Pokemon like you. Um,
hmm
and so I made the game plan of not drafting a tier 200 and just drafting a couple 160s and just early on trying to stay ahead of the draft and pick the lower tiers before other people got to them. Um, I also wrote a list of the top 5, I think just like whether or not I wanted to use them, just like objectively good Pokemon in Draft League. And Zeraora and Clefable were both on that list. So just like you, I felt obligated to put them on my team when they stayed around for me. So
hmm
Zeraora was my number one pick, then Clefable. And then the rest of the team is really just trying to, excuse me, help those two out. My I guess you'd call it core would be Steelix, Clefable, Zeraora. Those are my first 3 picks, and I like it. It's not Dragapult, Sylveon, Cobalion. It's probably the like tier 2 version of that. But I think as a coach, I'm someone who can find the versatility in Zeraora and Clefable and even Steelix. Um, so I'm excited about that. And from there, it was basically how do I build around Zeraora? Well, I want to get things that can um, that I want to get some ground immunities. So I got Mantine and Charizard. Um, Mantine, I'm a little scared about because it's electric immunity or electric weakness, but Zeraora is there with the electric immunity. Um, and yeah, sort of that's kind of how the team started to develop. And then it also became the fact that I think that Zeraora is really good, but really likes hazard support. So Stealth Rocks and Steelix and Clefable is good, and then getting hazards up with Roserade. Um, Hopefully, will chip down opponents so that I can just come in late game with Zeraora, who is maybe the fastest drafted Pokemon. It's faster than Dragapult by 1 point. Um,
Yeah, I think the only things faster are Excelgor and Ninjask. Is
and I
that
don't
right?
think either of those were drafted. Yeah.
Right.
So, um, so yeah, I think that this reminded me of my team, one of my teams during season 9, which was Zapdos, Mew, and Mega Aggron, where now I have Zeraora, Clefable, Steelix. Um, and one of, as much as I loved the synergy that I saw in the team, I found that every week I was having to work um, to put in the work instead of my Pokemon putting in the work for me. So when it came to team building, it was me having to figure out what were my win cons, rather than what I think good Pokemon should be doing, which is putting in the work for you. So it's an easier job for you.
Hmm. Yeah, I think your top tiers look really great. I think Roserade, you mentioned that it has has spikes and toxic spike support, but I think this Pokemon's actually getting a lot better this gen. So unfortunately, it doesn't get the technician hidden power, like hidden powers anymore.
Hmm.
But still, like with that great special attack and speed, and grass poison is good offensive typing, I think.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think Roserade's good. And Pangoro, we're not going to go through in this video at and look at every matchup. But as we were looking through, Pangoro has some good matchups against um, different teams, and it's I mean it hits really strong with Mold Breaker. It's great against. I forget if it gets like a bulldoze or an earthquake or something.
I think it
Um,
gets Earthquake.
yeah, so you're running Earthquake against all the Rotoms, things like that. It's so it's kind of a Pokemon that I don't know if it ever got drafted in a previous season for us.
Yeah, I was looking
Uh,
at it and I was trying to find in the tier 100s and the tier 120s um, something that was scary offensively on the physical side because at the time it was only Zeraora and Steelix that I had doing that work, and I wanted to make sure that I got another thing that could hit hard. And there were other things in the tier 100. There were other fighting types like Machamp and Passimian, but I kept coming back to Pangoro, and so we'll try it out.
yeah. And tell me, do you think that other people slept on Charizard? Like, would you? I don't know.
Um,
We lost all the megas. Why is regular Charizard worth drafting?
it's a fire type that's a special attacker. It's a base speed 100. I don't think I'm back and forth. I think that if Charizard is going to be good, it's in this meta. I drafted it to see if it could be good, but it's like kind of limited in its special attacking moves. It gets like Air Slash, which is kind of a weak flying move. It does get Hurricane and like Flamethrower and Fire Blast, but we'll see. Um, I'm not convinced it's good. I kind of got it to check.
Yeah. And then just a little funny thing that your Linoon Cottony is very similar to when Andy had Linoon Whimsicott.
Hmm.
Um, so that it's the common, prankster memento into belly drum setup sweep. So anyway, be careful about that, guys. Don't get swept by Linoon.
Yeah,
It's embarrassing.
I hope I don't do it to everyone every week. But it is a win con, and I was making sure I had more win cons late in the draft, and it's like my last the Cottony Linoon together is 120 points. So it felt like a decent combo to just add something for my opponents to have to go up against. And I also wanted Linoon because in this generation, with like without the defensive options that their previous were, I just didn't want someone else to draft Linoon. So I got it so that I didn't have to go against it.
I mean, that's a great reason to draft something, right? So,
Maybe. I got
yeah.
Raboot because it's the best Pokemon in the format. So,
It's- yeah, unquestionably.
so that's my
Um,
team.
great. Yeah, looks good. I like it. So we just have
Um, two more.
two, three left.
Galar. Oh yeah, Galar United, and then Washington Wahoo Hoots, or Virginia Wahoo Hoots, and then Houston Haxers.
What
Galar
about?
United.
Oh, we did go over the hippopotamus. That's
Yeah,
right.
Galar United, the rebranding of the Dragons, Salamences.
Yeah, they also made some trades.
Right. So what did they have in? Let me look at this. I can go to transactions.
Yeah, so
They had
previously,
Gyarados and switched it for Barraskewda.
I would be very curious to hear some
Justification.
reasoning. Yeah, because I know Bearscuda popped on the free market, and it's possible that Chris was thinking that, oh, I should just like get this now. If I want it, I should get it now because somebody else might pick it up because it went third overall, and then was promptly released. So I don't know.
Part of me
I'm curious
wonders,
about that logic.
I don't think Brian meant to do this, but functionally what he did was he drafted the water sweeper, the rain sweeper early on, which then meant anyone that was going to draft rain couldn't draft rain, and then he just traded it within the first 24 hours for free. So
Just like forcing people to not have
right, now you don't get
rain.
rain.
That's great. Thanks, Brian. I
Right,
appreciate
thank
that.
you. Um so but with this team, Chris's team, it feels like a lot of parts. Like, Alola Ninetales is the first thing that pops to my mind, and when see Alola Ninetales, I wanna see set up Pokemon around it. And maybe I don't know this new generation that well, but I just don't see the, like, the reason for running, like, Aurora Veil. Maybe Barraskewda, and I guess Duraludon can last a lot longer, and it hits pretty hard. Um, but maybe Swords Dance Decidueye with Shadowsteak. I don't know. That's me being really critical. I think that his team also in a way that I know Chris is excited about has a lot of weird Pokemon, unexpected Pokemon. Um Rotom Fan is okay for being um as low as it is, because it gets Nasty Plot, it gets Defog, and it can end up hitting pretty hard with um, base special attack of 105 and then Thunderbolts. Um, but also, he's going to do something weird with Hakamo or Morgrim or Whale Lord. When I was looking through Showdown trying to analyze these teams, I was like, why did Chris get Whale Lord besides the fact that it has an HP stat of 170? And I saw that it got block. I'm like, is he just going to pull his like block stall? Like, what is this thing for? And I'm sure we'll find out. I'm sure he's twiddling his fingers together, like maniacally laughing at why Wailord was the appropriate tier 40 Pokemon for him.
Another Pokemon I want to point out is Runerigus. I think so. It's 140 points. So I'll be curious to see if it's worth the cost. But we talked at the beginning about all the different Pokemon that had Stealth Rocks that are no longer in this generation. And I see Runerigus as filling the niche that a lot of those Pokemon filled. Things like, again, like Gliscor and Swampert and just stuff like that.
Donphan.
So, yeah, Donphan. Yes, it's like really physically defensive. It's really slow. It's got good special defense, though, too.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and it sets Stealth Rock. It has, its ability Wandering Spirit. It's kind of like Mummy, except it's better than Mummy because you get to keep the other person's ability. So, um, anyway, it's definitely interesting. And yeah, I just thought that I would point out that I think that's a good pick, and I'm curious to see how that one goes in particular. Um, Alolan Ninetales, I know you talked about a little bit, but I think um, I think 160 might be a little bit overvalued for Alolan Ninetales because some additional Pokemon get Snow Warning plus Aurora Veil, so things like Abomasnow. So I almost wonder if this team, I think Abomasnow is a tier 60. So if Chris were to trade something like Hakamo'o or Morgrim for Abomasnow, and then Alolan Ninetales for some other tier 140 that hits hard, or even like swap around a little bit to get another tier 200, something scary. So you could trade away Hakamo-O and then get Komo-O to really abuse the screens, something like that.
There are
Um,
some. So I guess Ninetales. I'll be an advocate for Ninetales now after I shat on it. It gets Nasty Plot, and Ice
mhm,
Fairy is great offensive typing, and at a speed that fast. Um, and with those defenses, like it's not like Steel types are as prevalent anymore on these teams, and if people do have Steel types, they're not always good Steel types. So
mhm.
um It might have just enough of a move pool to be good. It gets freeze try, which is going to be good against my Mantine or against Dragapult. It also gets really fast hypnosis. Um, it gets heal bell. So there's some ways that this Pokemon could be really cool. I could even see Chris running. I won't give away all the sets, but yeah, there are just ways that he can use this more offensively than the typical utility role. Because it might be one of the better offensive fairies this generation.
That's true. And I hope that it turns out well. I'd like to be proven wrong, of course. So cool.
Cool. Uh,
Um, and the Wahoots next, is that right?
Wahoots. Yes. Two more to go.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, this
So
team is
this,
bulky.
yes, is so bulky. He's got Kyurem and Grimstar, which are both very bulky attackers. Um, People know Grimsnarl for its screens and doubles, but in singles, it could just bulk up, rest, sleep talk, and one of its two stab moves gets the job done really, really well. Prankster bulk up is amazing, um, and its typing is actually really good defensively, so it could just set up in front of things and rock. Kyurem's really good this generation with a base speed of 95. And like I can imagine most weeks all Andy would have to think about doing is putting heavy duty boots on Kyurem, running stab and roost and substitute. And there's your set. Maybe you run earth power instead of substitute. But Kyurem really benefits from the new items and the limited move pool or the limited Pokemon pool. Um, so those two are really good attackers. And then luckily he's got really, really good defense. It's like at the expense of it costing a lot. So Toxapex and Eldegoss and Galarian Corsola um, are a regenerator core plus a just a kind of a stall Pokemon. So he can really um, deny whatever the opponent is trying to get going. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I'm excited for you to use this team, Andy. I feel like this is pretty different from the teams that you normally draft, and I think they're all great Pokemon in this format. Like Kyurem, especially, is something that is tier 3 last gen, but and I say this format, I mean this generation, this new type of 10 Pokemon, and this generation. Um, so yeah, Kyurem, I think it is great. Um, and of course, you have a staple like Girder for
Kling
yourself.
Klang. I was on his
Yeah,
first
Kling. Oh yeah, is
first
that
one.
a? Oh my
Shift
gosh,
gear, shift gear. Uh, what's that? Wherever that dual steam
double,
move is.
not double iron bash. The other one.
Right.
Um, gear grind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Turtonator and
yeah.
Venetric are probably two of the better tier 40s. Are you there?
I'm here now.
Okay. Yeah. Turtonator and Manectric are probably two of the better tier 40s. And Rhydon isn't bad. Um, so I felt like what happened was he grabbed five good Pokemon and then was just like, how do I salvage having to pick so many low tiers? And I think he did a good job at it.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think hopefully things like yeah, right on Kling Klang, Girder, Manectric at least. I'll have some utility, can be brought once and without any issue. Turtonator, I always see somebody new draft it and they always say like this season is going to be the season. So I'm skeptical. Because on paper it shouldn't be as bad as it is.
If anyone's going to be able to set up a Pokemon and sweep through, it's going to be Andy. So
Andy will win with Shell Smash Turtonator this season.
Yeah,
That's my bold prediction.
yeah, it's barely bold.
Yep.
So,
Cool.
yeah, I think that the big cons are the speed, 105 Manectric, and then 95 Kiram, and then Kling Kling.
Lots of slow things.
And
Yeah.
then after Kling Kling, it's base 60s, which Grimmsnarl you don't need to run speed on unless you're trying to speed creep something because that's Prankster. Eldegoss you shouldn't be running speed on. Um, so it really goes from 90 to like, yeah, to no speed base 60.
Wow.
So
But yeah, that's
it's
true.
gonna leave people open for their tier or their 70 speed Pokemon to just run very offensive, to run Adamant or to run Modest.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, we'll
Does he
see
have
how it
anything
goes.
that does he have anything that gets Trick Room? Just Kling Kling?
Kling Clang? I don't know. Um,
I'll look it up. Yep. Kling Kling gets Trick Room.
a
So um there could be something cool there. Um
yeah.
what else did I write down about Andy's team? Kind of like you were saying, I want to see Andy win in a new style. In one of the other leagues that we're both in, he had a more balanced team that he got into playoffs with. I think he got to semifinals. Maybe he got to the finals, but
Oh,
he did.
nice.
And it was with Megalodios, and it was a very um, not typical overpower Andy style. And he still did really well with it. So I want him to continue to stretch and expand the ways that he can win. Um,
All right. What's our
cool.
last team then?
What is it? Haxorus.
It is the Houston Haxorus.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So Ian wasn't able to draft with us, which meant he had the con of like everything being off, like more than half the Pokemon. It felt like were off the board. Um, but the pro then is that he can't get sniped, and so I think he did a good job of coming up with a team with the leftovers.
Yeah. And guys, I said that I wanted to draft Terrakion, and just look at this team. Terrakion is so good.
Hmm.
And if you go in some of the individual matchups, even just like look at your own team, it's like I don't know who has anything to stop Terrakion. I don't know.
Right.
Fighting plus Rock Stab is so good, and it's
Right.
great. You can run Choice Band and then switch in on a knockoff to get your Justified boost, and
Hmm.
then like especially if you maneuver it so later in the game, like when you're trying to clean up, um, that way you can switch all your moves. Anyway, it's super great.
Yeah, there's sort of like a defensive rotation of a core because you have Appleton and Mudsdale and Weezing that are all pretty good defensively. Appleton has a great HP stat, and then defense and special and defense are split, so it could run physically defensive one week or especially defensive another week. Mudsdale is good on the physical side. Weezing is good on the physical side, and Primarina, even when running offensive sets, has base 80 HP and base 116 SPDEF. So, sort of after Terrakion, the next six Pokemon down are all Pokemon that can um, be the interchangeable defensive Pokemon for the team that week.
hmm Now, one thing I would have liked to see more is some slow pivot options to bring in Terrakion more often,
Hmm.
or to bring in Primarina as well. I think that that's going to be another win con for Ian.
Interesting. Yeah.
As it stands, I see Rotom, but that's mostly it in terms of pivot.
Um, Oranguru does not get Baton Pass. Does Rhyme? Yeah, but Mr. Rhyme gets Baton Pass.
Okay, so that's 2. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Rhyme also, we'll see how that goes. It went undrafted. It gets decent abilities, weird ones like Tangled Feet and Screen Cleaner. Um, so there are a couple matchups. I guess the Auroraville matchup would be an example with Screen Cleaner, or any of the other hyper offensive teams might. It's good to even just have this on your roster to maybe get people to not want to run screen setup. Um, but yeah, this Pokemon has a base SPDEF of 100, HP of 80, and a special attack of 110. Um, so, and it also gets Nasty Plot because it's from the Mr. Mime
Mhm.
family. So, and it gets Rapid Spin. So, there's some weird things that this thing could do, and I hope that Ian finds some fun sets for it.
Yeah. I think Appleton is a really cool Pokemon. You talked about like what are some new fun Pokemon in Gen 8 that you just want to use just because they're fun
Yeah,
and hopefully they work out well. Yeah, I think Appleton is one of those. Again, with the ripen ability, thick fat is also amazing, of course.
right, with its quad weakness to ice and having
Hmm.
the being neutral to fire. So that it then puts it at just a single weakness to uh, ice and then resisting to fire.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that the Haxorus have um, quite a few options on defense, less options on offense. But in the right scenarios, will hopefully find some fun wins. I think that Rotom regular being at base speed 91 and being a ghost type with electric, that's some good typing with nasty plot. Um, and base special attack 95 is good. And I like the off the board Charmeleon pick. Um, I think it's better than some of the tier 40s that were listed. So
Mm, yeah.
that's the team.
All right. Yeah, it's great. Hey, I like pretty much all the teams this season.
Right.
Um, I think, like we were saying, it was very difficult to rank them. How do we? I feel like there's so much we still don't know about, how things are going to shake out this
Exactly.
season and in Gen 8. So it's a little bit difficult to say, who has the best team, or who drafted the best.
Exactly. And it's
Um,
also like if how much can we learn from this because the next time we draft there's going to be a DLC out with new Pokemon and more of the national decks coming in. Um and so our tier system is also we've had conversations about switching around. So there's just so much that um is going to change. I think that hopefully there still will be a whole lot to learn. Um, but yeah, like we said, we are not confident with our ranks. We still wanted to rank them because I know people like getting into that. Um, but anyway, I will. This year I made a little tier list maker for us. So you can go in. I'll put a link for you all. You can go in and kind of right here. This is my list. I have uh, I have me and S tier, and then Adam and
D
D
tier.
tier. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, this is our new tier list thing that we're gonna do this time around. Um,
Mhm.
I tried to rank them within the tier, but that deemed actually very difficult. Let me see if I can. Yeah, here's my team, or here's my ranks. So I have when I first gave people numeric scores 0 through 10, I had 6 teams that were tied, and that was all these A and B tiers. So I had to break it down. One of the rules that we're doing is you can't have more than 4 Pokemon in any of the tiers. So my favorite two were Baltimore Braviaries and the Las Vegas Venusaurs. And then the next 6 could go either way. You'll even see online if when I show you the link that I already switched around what I think the best ones are. But in this version of it tonight, I have Punxsutawney, and then the Cobalions, and then Magikarp and Haxorus as my A tier teams, and then I have uh, Driftvale and um, Wahoo after that. I think mainly I put these below because I think that the coaches kind of have to prove their use in my eyes in a little bit way where I can just see how these teams work well. Um, and then in the C tier team, I have myself, Hippopotas, and the Irish Mareeps, and then below that I have Ninetales and United. Um, anyway, that's my list. Let me see if I can pull up your list, Adam.
Yeah, you shouldn't pull up my one that looks like this. You should do my quadrant view because I'm very unconfident in this ranking. So actually,
Yeah, let me show
something
you.
that's
So when you click on this, fill out your tier list like this if you want, and we can share them all because there's a button that says save, um, or download, or you can just take a screenshot. But also you can go into quadrant view, um, and here I made this bulky to frail, and then offensive to passive. This is how we set it up. Um, and so it was a way for us to just kind of map how bulky and offensive each of the teams are. This is another cool way to do the rankings. And then so for mine, while I'm up here, I'm not going to go into huge depth with it, but I have, let's see if I can do this. Um, as you can see, my most offensive and bulky, which I would say are two positive traits. The teams that are most in this second quadrant are my top teams. That wasn't even intentional. I was just going through and looking at it, and that's how it ended up. So I want to see what your all's quadrant ranking systems are. And hold on, I'll pull up Adams right now. All right.
yeah,
So
here's
talk about
mine.
yours.
Yeah, so again, I felt like this was a little bit better of a way to describe the teams than just having the linear ranking, and it kind of explains like what is it about the team that is more positive or a little less positive. But even like we just picked these kind of like offensive, passive, bulky, frail. We picked these kind of arbitrarily, and so I'm not convinced that it's automatically the best way to do it. So it is not necessarily the case that things that are further to the right and further up are better. But it just so happens that this kind of aligns with how I think about the teams, which
Right.
is yeah, Braviaries, Venusaurs, and Haxorus being kind of at the top, and then you have like Drapion, Cobalions, the Mareeps, and the Magikarp, and the Wahoo Hoots kind of all together, and maybe anyway some of the other teams down a little lower. So who knows? It's definitely interesting to compare Kyle and my different quadrants because, and I'm sure even after just recording this video, I would go in and make some
Tweak something.
changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, we have these. We will post our pictures. I'll probably do a separate channel, so that you can post your what do you call these tier lists and
Mhm.
quadrant views. And hopefully you all find this fun. Hopefully it's not too demoralizing. Like I don't really like my team that much. And as you saw, I ranked my team in the like the bottom five. So hopefully it's not. Hopefully you don't feel like we're beating you up if multiple coaches have you in the lower rankings or something. Remember, we still have all of our trades and things like that, and you don't need a good team to win. You just need to win to win. So
That is uh it's yeah,
it's
it's
frustrating how true that
surprisingly
is, though.
yeah, it's surprisingly motivational.
So
Great.
anyway, Adam, do you have any last things to say?
No, just thanks for joining us, and I can't wait for a great season. Hope everyone has a good time.
All right, let's go, Reboots.